Welcome to reading class, everybody. We're going to talk through The Giver, Chapter 4. I know this has been kind of a tricky book. There's a lot going on as the book starts up, but this is definitely one of my favorite books I've ever read. So I hope, as things start to make sense over these first few chapters, you begin to really enjoy it too. Let's look at the vocab words first, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you read in Chapter 4. So I'd like you to head to page 20. We're looking for the word chastise. If you've got the white book, head to page 25. Come join us. Look these words up in context and do that while you filled out the worksheets too always, okay? Chastise is 4 lines from the top, or 4 lines from the beginning of chapter 3. So this is the part where Lily notices that his eyes are blue, and almost everybody else has brown eyes, right, in this community. And she says something not so nice about it. He didn't like it that she had mentioned his eyes. He waited for his father to chastise Lily. Remember, in this community, they really badly want to try to get rid of all hate or people feeling bad about the way that they look. And so it was wrong to really mention if someone looked different. And so when Lily noticed that and mentioned that Jonah's eyes looked lighter or different than everyone else's, Jonah thought his dad would chastise her for that. If you do something you really shouldn't do, your parents might chastise you. So chastise literally means to yell at because someone's doing something wrong. Petulantly, page 22. Petulantly is on page 27 in the white book and 22 in the black book. If you've got the black book, it's at the very top paragraph, the last line. This is Lily again. This is Lily wanting to be a birth mother at first, and the parents are kind of saying, Lily, that's not really the greatest job to want to be. So I'm going to start with the sentence, and she told me that the birth mothers get wonderful food, and they have very gentle exercise periods, and most of the time they just play games and amuse themselves while they're waiting. I think I'd like that, Lily said petulantly. So when the others were like, oh, Lily, you don't want to be a birth mother, Lily's saying, well, I've heard that birth mothers have it easy. While they wait for babies to be born, they just get to kind of lounge around and hang out, and I think I'd like that. But she said that petulantly because people had already dissed her idea of wanting to be a birth mother, right? Petulant means in a crabby way. Or in a pouting way. So like she's pouting. She doesn't like that people yelled at her for having that idea, right? Or thought that was a bad idea. All right, let's head to 28 or 36 if you're in the white book. Okay, second paragraph on 28 if you've got the black book. This is what would happen. This is the part of what would happen if you didn't get enough volunteer hours by the ceremony day for the 12s when they'd get their jobs. It says about the third line down of the second paragraph says all of his volunteer hours would be carefully tabulated at the Hall of Open Records. And so as they volunteer each day, their records are tabulated. In other words, they're counted up. Okay, because they needed to have a certain number of volunteer hours to graduate into a job or to be given a job, right? When you go to college someday, many colleges, including Martin Luther College, make you have a certain number of hours of volunteer time. Obviously, at Martin Luther College, if you're training to be a teacher, you'd have volunteer hours in classrooms that you have to have. Maybe you remember Mr. Quist coming to our classroom to get some of those hours. And so they would tabulate your hours that you have before they let you graduate to become a teacher. Most colleges will do that. They'll have you volunteer in the area that you're studying for or for other things before they let you graduate. So tabulated literally means to count up. So let's talk about what those questions mean. It says, what freedom did those who turn 8 get to do each day until they turned 12? What did Jonas like about this? So once you turned 8, you got to volunteer. When you weren't in school, you got to use some of your free time to volunteer at various places around the community. You could volunteer helping with recreation time with little kids, or you could volunteer at the nursing home or with the young babies in the baby center, right? And Jonas liked the freedom about that because almost everything else of his life was planned out for him, right? He lives in a dystopian community that does all the planning and all the deciding for him. This is one of the only things he's allowed to get to choose. So he likes to have that freedom. So what could happen if someone didn't volunteer enough hours? We just mentioned that. You wouldn't graduate. You wouldn't get a job. That actually happened once. Someone had to wait to get their job and didn't get to be celebrated at the ceremony. Number 3, how did the way Jonas volunteered at places affect what he thought about his coming assignment? So Jonas didn't stick with one place. A lot of his friends did, right? Jonas would go to different places. And so the way that affected his coming assignment is he had no idea where the elders were going to put him because he had tried so many different things, whereas a lot of his friends volunteered at one place all the time, so they probably knew that that's where they'd get assigned for a job, right? Jonas didn't do that. So that really affected that he was unsure of where he would go. Where did Jonas volunteer the day in chapter 4? What did he have to do there? So he went to a kind of a nursing home, right? An old person's facility is where he was working. And what did he have to do there? He had to bathe old people. Now, some of you are like, oh man, that's kind of weird or kind of gross. And yeah, okay, maybe it is. But guys, that's a real job. Even today in our real world, people have to do that at nursing homes and hospitals. Someone has to do it. And so Jonas, being the kind person that he is doing a job that many people probably wouldn't like. Although Jonas doesn't seem to know any better, right? He doesn't know a lot about the rest of the world, and it's not really strange to him in this community to do that. And so he had to bathe an older person. So he bathed an older lady, and she told him a lot of stuff, right? She talked to him a lot. And while he was doing that, she told him all about what the celebration was like, number 5, for those who were near the end of their life and who were being released. So they'd have a little ceremony in the house of the old, right? They'd talk all about the good things that someone did and make their life seem really exciting. And then they'd take them into a release room, and that was the last time you'd see them. And often the people would go in happy. And so then question number 6, what did no one know, though, about being released? No one had any idea what that really meant, right? They would just disappear. They'd get brought into this room, and then you'd never see them again. So maybe you have some of your own ideas of what that really means. But right now, Jonah and that older lady, too, that he was bathing, had no idea what it actually means. They just know that people typically seem to be happy when they're released, and they have a big ceremony, and all of a sudden you're gone. So we'll talk about that more, obviously, as the book goes along, and you'll find out some more details about that. But right now, no one really knows what goes on when the people are released. So one of the reading concepts or skills that we're going to talk about in this book is the idea that in a story, characters have different points of view. Everybody views the same thing differently. We're all individuals, right? For instance, if we go to a basketball game, like a Minnesota Timberwolves basketball game, I bet you Anthony would be having a good time. I know I'd be having a good time. Micah Horak probably would be having a good time. We'd think it's the coolest thing, right? Because the people that I mentioned are pretty big sports fans, I think, right? Whereas maybe some of you would be like, I don't know if I'd really enjoy that much or even understand much what's going on because I don't really like watching basketball. Do you see, we all went to the same event, pretending, right, the basketball game, but we have different points of view on that. And that's kind of what makes a story interesting is different people view different things in different ways, right? So as we read this book, we're going to see how that makes our book, The Giver, interesting in that some of our characters, like Jonas, are going to view things about the world very differently than the other characters do. And that makes an interesting story and sometimes creates tension because somebody might like something while somebody else doesn't, and sometimes that can cause conflict or tension. So just think of a few of the things that we've seen so far. Jonas, about the ceremony, right? Jonas is very uncertain about the ceremony, whereas his friends are more certain about the ceremony because they know where they think they know where they're going to get assigned, right? And so Jonas is very not sure, and he's very nervous about it, whereas some of his friends seem to have more certainty about where they're going to be assigned because they've been volunteering at a certain area the whole time. You know, we saw Jonas with the apple when they were tossing that, he and his friend Asher, right? He kept seeing something, whereas, not seeing things, his friends and his family didn't seem to really notice the same thing that he does, right? You know, Jonas isn't so sure about the rules. He likes more freedom, right? He likes to have the idea that he can pick where he volunteers, whereas the other people, a lot of his friends and family, they don't really question the rules. At least his mom and dad don't really seem to. I know his dad broke that one rule, but they seem to think the rules are good, whereas Jonas seems to have a lot of thoughts about our rules good. I don't know if I like this rule. I don't think it should be that way. Or, why don't we get more freedom? Jonas seems to have more thoughts about that than the other characters do. And so you can see the different points of view already starting to form. We're going to see Jonas, without giving any spoilers away, we're going to see Jonas continue to have some different thoughts about his community and all the rules that they have to follow than maybe his family and friends do. And that kind of makes the book interesting. And you'll see that there'll eventually be some conflict because of that, okay? So we'll keep watching that as the book goes on. For now, we're going to read chapter 5, and we'll keep track if we run into any other different points of view between Jonas and his friends and family about the world or about the community. But as we listen to chapter 5, don't forget to listen for that code word 2. Thank you for always watching the videos for each class. That's one of the reasons I do the code word, is just to make sure that we're always watching the videos and being faithful with that. Not only in reading class, but in the other classes too. I can tell we've been watching the videos more faithfully lately because our lessons and our assignments have gone smoother and have been a higher quality. Keep that up, guys, okay? So that's one of the reasons I do this every day. Hopefully it's a little fun too to kind of try to listen for the secret code word that you get to put on your worksheet. It's a free answer too for your worksheets, a free point, right? All right, chapter 5 starts on page 34. We'll read this one together. Follow along with me. If you're in the white book, you'll have to find where it starts. I apologize, I don't have that page right in front of me. But enjoy the book right along with us, and then you'll read chapter 6 on your own. Here we go. Chapter 5. Usually at the morning ritual, when the family members told their dreams, Jonas didn't contribute much. He rarely dreamed. Sometimes he woke up with a feeling of fragments afloat in his sleep, but he couldn't seem to grasp them and put them together into something worthy of telling at the ritual. But this morning was different. He had dreamed very vividly the night before. His mind wandered while Lily, as usual, recounted a lengthy dream. This one a frightening one in which she had, against the rules, been riding her mother's bicycle and been caught by the security guards. They all listened carefully and discussed with Lily the warning that dream had given. "Thank you for your dream, Lily," Jonas said the standard phrase automatically, and tried to pay better attention while his mother told him of a dream fragment, a disquieting scene where she had been chastised for a rule infraction she didn't understand. Together they agreed it probably resulted from her feelings when she had reluctantly dealt punishment to the citizen who had broken the major rules a second time. So notice we see another difference. Dreams, Jonas usually doesn't have them and doesn't like to talk about them as much. Now today it's going to be different, but his friends and family enjoy the discussions on dreams. In fact, that's one of the rules in the community, that you're supposed to discuss all your feelings and your dreams. Jonas isn't so sure he likes that most days, whereas most of the other people are like, okay, if that's the rule, we'll do it, right? Once again, we see Jonas kind of questioning some of the things the way they are. Although today he's happy to share his dream. Top of page 35. Father said that he had no dreams today. Gabe? Father asked, looking down at the basket where the new child lay, gurgling, "Hey, there's my name," after his feeding, ready to be taken to the nurturing center for the day. They all laughed. Obviously, the baby's not going to tell a dream, right? Dream telling began with threes. If new children dreamed, no one knew. Jonas? Mother asked. They always asked, though they knew how rarely Jonas had a dream to tell. "I did dream last night," Jonas told them. He shifted in his chair, frowning. "Good," Father said. "Tell us." "The details aren't really clear," Jonas explained, trying to recreate the odd dream in his mind. "I think I was in the bathing room at the House of the Old." "That's where you were yesterday," Father pointed out. And Jonas nodded. "But it wasn't really the same. There was a tub in the dream, but only one. And the real bathing room has rows and rows of them. But the room in the dream was warm and damp, and I had taken off my tunic, but I hadn't put on the smock, so my chest was bare. I was perspiring, I was sweating because it was so warm. And Fiona was there, the way she was yesterday." "Asher too?" Mother asked. Jonas shook his head. "No, it was only me and Fiona alone in the room, standing beside the tub. She was laughing, but I wasn't. I was almost a little angry at her in the dream because she wasn't taking me seriously." "Seriously about what?" Lily asked. Jonas looked at his plate. For some reason that he didn't understand, he felt slightly embarrassed. "I think top of page 36, was trying to convince her that she should get into the tub of water." He paused. He knew he had to tell it all, that it was not only all right, but necessary to tell all the dream. So he forced himself to relate the part that made him uneasy. "I wanted her to take off her clothes and get into the tub," he explained quickly. "I wanted to bathe her. I had the sponge in my hand, but she wouldn't. She kept laughing and saying no." He looked at his parents. "That's all," he said. "Can you describe the strongest feeling in your dream, son?" Father asked. Jonas thought about it. The details were murky and vague, but the feelings were clear and flooded him again now as he thought. "The wanting," he said. "I knew that she wouldn't, and I think I knew that she shouldn't, but I wanted it so terribly. I could feel the wanting all through me." "Thank you for your dreams, Jonas," Mother said after a moment. She glanced at Father. "Lily," Father said, "it's time to leave for school. Would you walk beside me this morning and keep an eye on the new child's basket? We want to be certain that he doesn't wiggle himself loose." Jonas began to rise to collect his school books. He thought it surprising that they hadn't talked about his dream at length before the thank you. Perhaps they found it as confusing as he had. "Wait, Jonas," Mother said gently. "I'll write an apology to your instructor so that you won't have to speak one for being late." Okay, I want to pause there because we just had kind of a sort of a controversial scene in the book. I want to explain what's going on, and I thank you for handling this part of the book very maturely. Now remember, in this community, love is outlawed, right? They don't talk about love and loving people and things like that because that would create jealousy, right? Now, as you get older, as you know, God has designed boys as they get older to become attracted to girls, right? And God has designed girls to become attracted to boys. What causes that? What causes people to want to have a relationship with someone of the opposite gender? Well, it's really something called hormones. these chemicals that get released in your body as you go through puberty and change and things. And again, handle this maturely. I trust that you can. And that causes you to begin to be attracted to someone of the opposite gender, right? God has designed it to work that way. That's not an embarrassing thing. Jonas is embarrassed about this because he doesn't know this. No one's explained this to him before. It's not a bad thing to be attracted to someone of the opposite gender. In fact, that's the way God designed you to be. But you see what Jonas starts to have is he starts to have these wants, which we would call sins or wrong things, right? He wants to obviously kind of like sin with Fiona there. Now, he doesn't understand all that because this is all new to him. But obviously he has these wants that are not good. He wants to break the sixth commandment, be with someone without enough clothing on and things like that. And so that's a want that he's having. But he's having those wants because he's becoming close to being a teenager now, right? He's turning 12. And so because of the hormones in his body, he's starting to be attracted to someone of the opposite gender. And he's really confused about that. He's like, why do I want this? Why am I attracted to my friend Fiona? And that's never been explained to him before. And you're going to find out that when people have attractions, the way that they get rid of love and feelings for other people is they give medication to the people of the community. I know I'm spoiling this a little bit, but I really want to explain this part of the book. Okay, so it makes sense to you, okay? Now remember, if they're going to outlaw love, then they don't want people to be attracted to each other, so they don't fall in love and have jealousy and all those things happen. And so they give medication to the people of the community to block those hormones, those chemicals that get released in your body that make you attracted to someone of the opposite gender, to get rid of that. And so we're going to see Jonas's mother realize what's going on here and start giving him that medication to take away those feelings that he's having, okay? So again, I just want to be clear. What Jonas wanted in this book, obviously that's a sin against the sixth commandment. Obviously someone who's not married shouldn't have thoughts like that about someone else, right? And so, I do want to point that out. And this is not a Christian book written from a Christian perspective. But feelings of attraction for someone of the opposite gender, that in of itself is not wrong. God designed you to be that way. And that's okay. Remember, when you get married or when you date someday, first, don't just date someone that you're attracted to. Certainly it's okay to date someone you're attracted to, but don't let that be the main thing or the only thing. Make sure that you date or hang out with someone or marry someone someday, obviously, that has a sharing of your faith too and that you're attracted to. It's okay to have both those things, but some people put too much of an emphasis on attraction. All right, anyways, that was a long explanation for what's going on. So let's see her now realize that, Jonas is having these attractions for people of the opposite gender. I need to give him some medication. Top of page 37 if you're in the Black Book. Okay. He sank back into his chair, puzzled. He waved to Father and Lily as they left the dwelling, carrying Gabe in his basket. He watched while Mother tidied the remains of the morning meal and placed the tray by the front door for the collection crew. Finally, she sat down beside him at the table. Jonas, she said with a smile, the feeling you described as the wanting, it was your first stirrings. That's what they call in this community attractions to the opposite gender. Right? Father and I have been expecting it to happen to you. It happens to everyone. It happened to Father when he was your age, and it happened to me. It will someday happen to Lily. And very often, Mother added, it begins with a dream. Stirrings. He had heard the word before. He remembered that there was a reference to the stirrings in the Book of Rules, though he didn't remember what it said. And now and then the speaker mentioned it. Attention, a reminder that stirrings must be reported in order for treatment to take place. He had always ignored the announcement because he didn't understand it. It never seemed to apply to him in any way. He ignored it, as most citizens did, many of the commands and reminders read by the speaker. Do I have to report it? He asked his mother. She laughed. You did, in the dream telling. That's enough. But what about the treatment? The speaker says that treatment must take place. Jonas felt miserable. Just when the ceremony was about to happen, his ceremony of 12, would he have to go away someplace for treatment just because of a stupid dream? Top of page 38. But his mother laughed again in a reassuring, affectionate way. No, she said, it's just the pills. You ready for the pills, that's all. That's the treatment for stirrings. Jonas brightened. He knew about the pills. His parents both took them each morning, and some of his friends did, he knew. Once he had been heading off to the school with Asher, both of them on their bikes, when Asher's father had called from their dwelling doorway, You forgot your pill, Asher? Asher had groaned good-naturedly and turned his bike and ridden back while Jonas waited. It was the sort of thing one didn't ask a friend about because it might have fallen into that uncomfortable category of being different. Asher took a pill each morning. Jonas did not. Always better, less rude, to talk about things that were the same. Now he swallowed the small pill that his mother handed him. That's all? He asked. That's all, she replied, returning the bottle to the cupboard. But you mustn't forget. I'll remind you for the first weeks, but then you must do it on your own. If you forget, the stirrings will come back. The dreams of stirrings will come back. Sometimes the dosage must be adjusted. Asher takes them, Jonas confided. His mother nodded, unsurprised. Many of your group mates probably do. The males, at least, and they will soon. And they all will soon. Females, too. How long will I have to take them? Until you enter the house of the old, she explained. All of your adult life. But it becomes a routine. After a while, you won't even pay much attention to it. She looked at her watch. If you leave right now, you won't even be late for school. Hurry along. And thank you again, Jonas, she added as she went to the door, for your dream. Pedaling rapidly down the path, Jonas felt oddly proud to have joined those who took the pills. For a moment, though, he remembered the dream again. The dream had felt pleasurable, though the feelings were confused. He thought that he had liked the feelings that his mother had called stirrings. He remembered that upon waking, he had wanted to feel the stirrings again. Then in the same way that his own dwelling slipped away behind him as he rounded a corner on his bicycle, the dream slipped away from his thoughts. Very briefly, a little guiltily, he tried to grasp it back, but the feelings had disappeared. The stirrings were gone. So notice, here's the difference between Jonas and the other characters. Jonas seems to like the stirrings, right? He likes being attracted to people of the opposite gender, whereas his family and friends are really quick to stop the stirrings, right? They think it's a good thing. Hey, take your medicine, have them gone, right? So notice, once again, we see a different perspective from Jonas from the people of the rest of his community. But again, this is Jonas growing up old enough that he's starting to have an attraction to the girls in his community, right? That's a normal thing. But in this community, they don't want that. They think the feelings of love and attraction cause problems, jealousy, breakups, divorces, and so they want to get rid of that. So they have everybody in the community until they're old take pills to block the hormones that cause you to be attracted to someone of the opposite gender. What do you think about that? Pretty crazy, right? That's how much control these people have over the other people in their community, these government elders have. And so we'll see how that plays out as the book goes on, and if Jonas has a different opinion on all this as the story continues to go on. But hopefully that makes some sense. Thanks for handling that part of the book maturely. Obviously, God warns us against having inappropriate thoughts and feelings towards people that we're not married to. That's the sixth commandment, right? So we want to be careful about that. But at the same time, I want you to understand it's not wrong to be attracted to someone who's a different gender than you. That's okay. God designed you to be that way. And someday, chances are you'll find someone you're attracted to too. Don't forget that they should share your faith as well. That should be an important part. But someone that you find attractive that you might want to date or marry someday. And that's all a natural thing that God has designed, and that's a good thing. We just have to be careful not to break the sixth commandment and let that cross into sinful thoughts and desires for someone of the opposite gender. So thanks for handling that maturely, guys. Have a good rest of your day. By the way, the code word today is, let's make it Jonas. Okay, so our code word is Jonas. I almost forgot to put that in there. Have a good rest of your day, guys.